You guys, this is going to be a really, really special episode because I have my dear friend Courtney, who you just got to be introduced to right before this. And she is one of the people that I will say in 1 minute conversation will have you laughing, crying, and will probably have told you the best joke in the world without actually meaning for it to be a joke. She's one of those people. So she will bring a smile to your face. She might make you cry as well. I'm really excited to introduce her today because we're going to talk about a really hard topic for most people, and that's grief. And she's going to share her story, talk about some tools, and just help us learn how to navigate something that is life altering and potentially for some can feel drowning and overwhelming, and help us learn how to navigate that. So Courtney, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have you.
Hi, Susan. Well, thank you. That was all very kind. Many people are now afraid of all the emotions that might happen within the 1 minute, right? That they see me or meet me. But I'm so glad to be here.
Well, everybody's like bracing, like, okay, wait, am I going to cry or am I going to laugh? What's going to happen?
Totally buckle up, everybody.
Buckle up. If only they heard our conversation right before this, before we started recording. We talked about all the things.
Oh,
before we get going, I would love you to share your story and why you were here. And although your story doesn't involve cancer, your story shares an emotion that people that are navigating any health diagnosis could experience, and it's grief and tragedy and walking through that. And so I would love you to just share a little bit of who you are and what brought you to this place.
You bet. You bet. And you bring up a really good point. I love that you are opening this conversation up about grief. And for those people who are listening who might not think it's relative to their life, that's we're going to put a yet on there, right? Because it's going to be relative to people's lives at some point.
Absolutely.
And grief is this emotional process that's really, it's impactful to, many lives. So I'm here because I'm a wife and mom of 4 kids. And in April of 2020, my oldest passed away tragically, unexpectedly, and flipped our lives upside down. And so I've had to really deep dive into this emotional process known as grief. I had no choice because I have to walk my family through it. I have to try to either role model or even just side by side help my kids through this. So I felt like I had no choice. So here I am.
I love that you said that, because how many times have people said to you, I couldn't do what you do. I don't know how you do it. Mm-hmm. And I remember people saying that to me when Kicker was sick, and you go, you don't have another choice.
That's it. You have to wake up the next day, and you have Selah, you have other kids, you have your husband, we don't have a choice. We didn't, the day before any of these things that either of us have been through, we didn't think we would have done it. We didn't think we could have done it. Yeah. And this is just part of our journey for some reason.
And for you to step into a role of, you were already a leader in your family, along with your husband, of course, as a mom and a wife to 4 kids, 3 who were also grieving. And you had to step into this role as not only mom, continued mom, but now caregiver, emotional counselor. I mean, that's heavy lifting. But again, like you said, that's the experience at some point all of us will have to navigate. Maybe not with a house full of kids, but would you share with us just those beginning kind of months, days, weeks, months, as you navigated that and you navigated your own heartbreaking and walked your family through that? What were some of the most helpful things, whether it was somebody doing something for you or something that you found would just bring you into peace or give you that hope?
I love this question, despite it being it's all so personal. This emotional process is personal. And I will say that I feel strongly about early grief it's survival mode. Yeah. Right. I think it's not a time to really try to strategize one's grief or pick it apart or try to do it right. I do hear a lot about that. I do talk to a number of people going through grief, and they're trying to be real logical about it. Early grief, it's just about survival. And during that time, what got me personally to get up each and every day is my other three kids. Right. If I threw in the towel, what they could easily, right? So it's just, unfortunately, being that leader mother role, we have to kind of role model what we want to see. And that was okay, whether it was lying in bed with them, whatever it looked like. It was just, I mean, at the very least, trying to make sure everybody's hydrated, right? So just tending to the real simple things. The helpful things from our circles, right? Or is it an intimate, are these people from your intimate circle versus, like, let's say, neighbors or more community? I think for me and for my family, it made a difference. So such as, let's say, people in your outer circle. Things that were really helpful were even just texts or phone calls. And I hardly answered my phone, but just even a nice voicemail. And, a little digression from that is, please don't feel like you have to say the right thing. There's no right thing to say. And I will tell you that I got the most awkward voicemails and I loved them dearly. It's better than just to not call or, not send the text. So that's something to remember. That was really powerful for me. But, and then physically, in person showing up, whether it's, maybe I didn't answer the door, but maybe they're dropping off some flowers or a special rock that they painted, or, whatever it was. And then the more intimate circle, are the people that are closer to our hearts. For us, this is a lesson in our human journey. This is about being able to hold space for people's emotions. And that's very difficult. So coming in and seeing a mama who has lost their child, they don't know what they're going to expect, right? And my family all reacted differently. And I had one daughter who it came out as anger. And all I can do, I was just in her presence and I would tell her, I'd say, I'm not afraid of your emotions. I can hold it. And was I panicking inside? Hard yes. But it's getting into touch with, like, my breath, trying to just really open my heart so I can send her a little bit of energy, because I'm picking up on her energy, no doubt, right? So that means she's picking up on mine. I know this sounds like maybe a little woohoo, but it's just, that's what holding space is. She has her emotions, or he does, whoever, and it can be about grief. It can be about anything. They're showing their emotions. And our job is to maybe not fill the space with words, but, open our heart and just be there. And maybe that's a hand on somebody's back while they're crying. Maybe it's just being in the room with them. And that whole process is difficult, like I said, right? But it's when we focus, maybe through our breath, when we focus on our heart, it's getting out of our own head and allowing this true connection to happen. And again, that can be through this emotional process as grief or any other emotional process. So that part was really impactful to myself and our family. And I've learned a ton, and I've used it a ton, and I use it daily with my job. But so that was probably the most helpful, like not feeling like you have to fill in the blanks with words, and then just being able to steer yourself away from the discomfort of somebody's emotions and just being able to be there and hold it.
I love that you shared that. I am reading right now through the book of Job in the Bible.
Tell me.
And wow, that's intense. But one of the things that stands out to me is, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this book in the Bible, it's probably one of the hardest books to read, because Job was this amazing righteous man who did nothing wrong, even in the eyes of God, and it's kind of a long story, but was basically persecuted and ended up being stripped of his whole family. All his kids died. His wife left him, and he's riddled with disease all over his body. And in the beginning of his journey, of being stripped of everything he knows, loves, everything. He had 3 friends travel to be with him. And in the first 7 days, they sat with Job in silence. They sat there, just silence, and mourned with him and wept with him. And in fact, the Bible says that when they got to him and they saw him, they wept.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, what a beautiful picture of what community should be in a time of grief is what you just said. You don't need to fill in the blanks. No words are necessary. Just show up. And they sat with him for 7 days. But guess what happened?
Mm-hmm.
After 7 days of silence, they then started to question him, and they started to justify, and they started to accuse, and they were trying to probably in their own heart figure out, why is this happening, and solve it for him. They can't solve it for him. Just like for you, I couldn't show up to your house and try to fix the problem. And so by me offering words that maybe didn't make a whole lot of sense, it would have been far more beneficial to sit with you and weep with you and just be present. And so all that to say, I think that is such powerful advice, is don't fill in the blank, just show up. And like you said, even for your kids, a hand on the back. I mean, sometimes, because I know as for you as a mom, you wanted to get it out of her. Like, tell me all the things you're feeling and why are you feeling this way? And we're going to work it through. We're going to work it out. But you couldn't.
Right. That's right. Because, and like you're saying, and that story is exactly what I'm talking about. And even because they held space for 7 days. And then of course, this is a slightly different, but I mean, after 7 days, then they start wondering what's wrong. And society can do that, right? They kind of think that we should be moving along, but if we just continue to show up and hold the space and honor their own journey, it's really, really, really impactful for them. And as humans, I think we, like you just said, there's a desperateness as a mother to solve, but even as a friend, right? I'm watching a friend go through and I want to solve it. And knowing that we can't can kind of relieve you of the pressure of coming up with those right words.
Yeah.
Right. It's like relieve yourself of the pressure, because no matter whatever you say, we can't take away their emotions or what's happened. So it's just an honoring of this powerful, but we're also powerless in some ways of this process.
Yeah. Was there anything outside of, obviously, the comment about people trying to solve? Was there anything in particular that would be helpful for people to understand that maybe wasn't helpful and maybe done in the right heart, right? People think that they're helping. And, but as you navigate, whether it's that beginning crisis phase of grief or 3 years down the road of still managing and waking up to one person being gone from the dinner table, is there anything in particular that would be helpful for people to understand not to do?
Yeah. So that is a tricky question, because what you've just said is that people are just trying.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to judge where their motive is loving. So, it's hard to like kind of judge and pick apart what they've done. So it's hard. I would probably say, so I think if I could speak for my family, I think it would probably, many people in my family would say, please don't say you understand. So we get a lot of, again, I feel a little bit bad saying this, but people will say they'll relate it to maybe losing their pet. Right. And it's just this, and see, as I said, I want to honor those people that their pets are so important to them. Right. So there's that. And that's why it's hard. I think in the moment, and like you said, in that acute early grief, it's just like, I think it's lonely, and it feels like we're going through something nobody else is, so that's hard. But so I think, that's a really hard one, because like I said, show up even if you're awkward.
Yes.
Right. So that never bothered me. Even people's, sometimes their things they'd say, it didn't really bother me, except, I mean, we've touched on this actually earlier, where it was like, I can't imagine. And I just don't know what to say at that point, because I'm more than 2.5 years in, and I still can wake up and go, I can't imagine. I don't want to imagine. I don't want to be here. You know, so it's still this process. So, you know, it's just hard. I did get a lot of gifts, season. You get a lot of gifts. I'm sure you've, you know, experienced this. And from books, like heavy books I couldn't read, to like crafts. Like I got a basket weaving kit. Okay, and I just had like, right. Right. So for the people who are listening, right, I'm the most like non-DIYer as it is. Okay. And then like I could hardly feed my family during these days, much less
Let alone weave a basket.
like make a freaking basket. Right. So I don't know. I mean, be weary about what you might send them. But everybody's different. And I understood their motive, like maybe distract her, maybe put her to learn something new. You know, but but again, I tried to keep it in the reference of, you know, everybody's just trying to send their love and say they care. And so it's hard to, like I said, it's hard to kind of judge.
Well, I think you said, other than don't send a basket weaving kit, perhaps. But
especially to me, I mean, especially to me, right?
She doesn't do manicure, she doesn't do arts and crafts. Listen,
no,
we'll run a 74-mile marathon in under 5 minutes. But, which by the way, you don't know Courtney yet.
But my God, don't make me wake up.
But here's what I am hearing though, from what you've shared to this point, especially as people come alongside of those who are grieving, is it's better to show up than not at all. Yeah. And like you said, leave the awkward voice memo or leave the awkward voice message, because you aren't supposed to fix it. None of us expect you to solve it, but knowing you're there is better than not showing up at all. And I know you experienced this. We've talked about it. We did as well, where when Kicker was first diagnosed, like we lost friends in the sense of we never heard from them because they didn't know what to say. And to us, it felt hurtful because 6 months down the road, we still haven't heard from these friends. And to them, they just felt so helpless.
Yeah.
And so if they would have just sent the awkward voice memo or just a text, here for you,
that's right,
about you, praying for you, whatever, that's 100% volumes, right?
It does. And, you know, you bring up a good point in that let's say, it's hard. I mean, it's just going to be hard to support. Okay. It's just, I've lost friends. It changes everything. Right. You want to be that support and you know, it's hard for you. Well, so honor yourself, honor that. Okay. And how about this? How about, even what if I called and left a message for you, Season, and instead of even saying, how can I help? I'm going to get, okay, here's another idea. I'm going to come walk your dogs. What day works? Mm-hmm. Or, I'm going to the store. What can I grab you? Mm-hmm. Right. I know your garbage. I'm going to take your garbage out to the curb this week. Remind me, is it Wednesday or Thursday? So you get what I'm saying? It's like not this vague thing, because then Caesar, without having to think about it, without even having to return the phone call, you can go, you know, eggs, sourdough, whatever the heck you want at the store. And it's like, right. Yeah. Only if they're on sale, because really, so it's like, you know, or it's like Wednesday at 9 is when the garbage goes out. So it doesn't even have to be a long this conversation, but that person can just go, you're going to walk your dog, you know, what day works. So it's just being kind of specific. So you bring up a good point in that there's lots of different levels of, of support. Yep. And of ways to support them.
Yeah. I love that. So let me ask you, I think, you know, for those who are navigating grief, whether they're in the early stages or 10 years down the road, what are some tools and resources that have helped you? You made this comment, and I know you are such a graceful person in how you operate in life. You made it even sound that way in that crisis phase of, you're like, yes, I woke up every morning because I had to show up for my kids. But I imagine the turmoil deep down of getting out of bed. And you might have been getting out of bed to go lay in your son's bed or your daughter's bed, right? Moving from bed to bed. But what are
Absolutely.
some tools that you've used then, or maybe you wish you had in the beginning phases, or you're using now to just give you that ability when it feels almost impossible?
Mhm. Great questions. And I feel I can, I first off, I want to say that the people who are going through grief right now who are listening, I really want to honor them. And they're doing something right now, right? They're getting on
Yeah.
their favorite
Yeah.
podcast and they're right. So it's just, I just want to honor them. And so, so like I've said a lot, we want to think of grief as this, like it's an emotional process. It's not one emotion, it's a process. And it's going to look different for everybody. So I think it's, is it Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler, right? So they have the 5 stages of grief, right? So anger, no, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance.
Mm.
So of course, not everybody's going to go through those 5. And hear me loud and clear, that's not linear, right? And then David Kessler actually added a sixth stage called finding meaning, which was helpful for me. But so those we can sometimes can help in that one person in your life is like I said, anger was her first, right? I had denial for a long time. So just understanding that you're not alone, like what you're feeling is, sometimes it feels nice to have that communal feeling like, okay, there are other people that have felt this before. So, and then actual tools. Okay. So I'm going to kind of highlight maybe 3. Um, Andrew Huberman he gave us the perspective of grief in 3 dimensions. Okay. So space, time, and closeness. So that would all encapture like the attachment you had with this person. So for example, space. Was this person living with you? Were they in the same town? Were they across the country? Time. Did you see this person every day? Did you see this person every 3 months? Right. And then closeness, how close were you with this person? So that's right. The creating the level of attachment. And I bring this up because of some of the tools that I kind of started to work with. Again, I'm going to be real honest. In the beginning, it was absolute survival mode. And I did go from bed to bed. I had people in my bed. I was in a twin bed with my youngest. All I could do was walk us through every day, and maybe, like I said, carry a water bottle around and have people take some sips, right? But as it kind of progresses, again, it's a process. One idea that works for some people, and again, this is so personal, right? So I want everybody to know that these are practices. It's just like self-care practices, like what works and what doesn't, right? And so it's just a willingness and an openness to try different things. So one is like dedicating a period of time to your grief. So maybe it's a box of their favorite items, or maybe it's photos, a special blanket, whatever it may be, and really saying, okay, I'm going to give myself whatever it is, 45 minutes. And I'm going to be here, and it's going to hurt. And I'm going to feel it. And they call it a heartache for real, because it actually, your heart does swell and your heart rate does go up, and it hurts. It's a real heartache. And so we know that it's going to hurt. However, if we can kind of dedicate this time, and then at the same time maintain some sort of healthy level of that in attachment that we just had with the 3 dimensions that I just said. So for example, if we were going to focus, let's say we have this dedicated period of time, and I say, okay, I'm going to focus on space. So like I had him living in my house, right? I had my son living in my house. So we were together all the time. It was pandemic, right? Everybody's all up on top of one another, right? And so that was taken away. So let's say I'm going to sit down with my dedicated box and say, okay, I have this period of time, and today I'm going to spend some time with space, the dimension of space. Well, I'd like to invite, if you have a religious or a spiritual view of what happens after somebody passes, then they can maybe spend some time with that, right? And we're just trying to remap the relationship with space, right?
Mm.
Instead of where is he, why, what, right? Remap it. And maybe, and that's a struggle for somebody who, like myself, who really went through that. I don't know what goes on. I didn't have a strong religious belief. So it's been a different process, but that's for a different podcast, right? So but that's that's one idea, right? So a dedicated period of time trying to feel that grief, and then also maintain some sort of remapping of the attachment. So, and that leads me into number 2, which is really, really important. I want to, I hope everybody can hear this, because I think everybody who's lost somebody may have experienced this, is the counterfactual thoughts of what if. Maybe I should have visited a different doctor. Maybe if I had fed them this or didn't feed them this, or maybe if I had talked, not let him, whatever it is, all the, we want to decrease the counterfactual thoughts. And one might say, well, that's really great in theory. How do you do that? And that's it's kind of like, how do you change any habit? How do you add a behavior? How do you modify a behavior? And, it's a whole nother podcast, of course, but right here, I would invite to say, okay, to interrupt a pattern, right, is difficult, but it's possible. And so we want to start with, if we think of what we'd call the triad. So there's 3 things, like change your language in your head. What are you saying, right? Change your language in your head, change what you're focusing on, and change your physiology. So physiology is your body. So if you're laying down because you're grieving and it hurts, maybe, and you're stuck in the, I shouldn't have let him, or I should have taken him to a different, then we need to get up. I don't care, just move. If you have a downstairs, upstairs, move your body, just move, or go outside, take 5 deep breaths, then maybe come back and change the language that you're saying, and then change your focus. And so that's just one way of interrupting a pattern, because it's real easy for me to say, oh, here, decrease the counterfactual thoughts. Okay. Get rid of the what ifs. Well, they can be, it can be the loop in your head. And so I just wanted to give one tool for that.
That's so helpful, because, and you were the one that taught me this actually a year or 2 ago, of just the idea of taking a minute to breathe. Just take a minute, stop and breathe. And even that simple act can just reposition and refocus your mind on something different.
Yes. Exactly. and that, I mean, I'm a freak for a good breath. I mean, just a gentle pause.
That should
right?
be a
and
hashtag. That's going to be your new hashtag.
I'm a freak for a good breath. Yeah. And
a basket weaving kit.
Yeah, maybe that's why I can't weave a basket, because I'm trying so hard to learn how to breathe. Right. So, but it leads me into like the third tool is grief can mess up our nervous system. So, I mean, our brain perceives threat after something like this happens. And so we go into our sympathetic nervous system, and I'm a real geek for our nervous system. So I'm going to make this real simple though, is that we go into flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. And that's our sympathetic nervous system. That is in a nutshell, here's what it is. It turns on some of our systems and it turns off some of our systems that make it more efficient if we're being chased by a bear. Okay. So if we're being chased by a bear, we don't need to digest our food. So you're right. So our digestive system is going to it's going to power down, things like this. However, we're not being chased by a bear, but still, like, our alertness is activated, right? Of course, our pleasure decreases. Of course, our appetite decreases. Of course, our sleep problems increase. Our immune system decreases. We have somatic changes, like people get headaches, right? Migraines, and our stress or inflammation, and of course, then it leads to all these things that I'm sure you talk about, right, in our bodies. So to get to our parasympathetic is going to be our breath, among other things. But we really need to really find our calm, right? And that's going to look different to a lot of people. So For example, maybe that's social connection. Okay. So maybe having your friends over and sitting on the couch and sharing a box of Kleenex with them, right? Maybe that's trying to really get some sleep. And that is going to look different for a lot of people as well, right? Maybe that's exercise. Maybe that's some guided meditation. And it can be as simple as just getting in touch with your breath.
Yeah.
And then the best way to get like real calm and friendly with your parasympathetic is let your exhales, allow your exhales be longer than your inhales. That even just that, as simple as it sounds, even just that, that's going to get in touch with your vagus nerves and vagus nerve, excuse me. And if your exhales are longer than your inhales, we're activating your vagal toning, right? And that's going to just, your stress response just comes up, right? It like decreases. So that's the, it's breath, right? It's free, it's accessible. And sometimes within just a few breaths, it can change the state and the quality of your thoughts and mind and your nervous system.
Wow.
Not easy. It's simple, but not easy.
Well, and
If that makes sense.
it totally does. And what you shared is
Mm-hmm.
free and at
Mm-hmm.
everybody's fingertips in the moment. But it's a choice, right? It's a choice
Exactly.
to step into that.
It is a choice, and it's hard because oftentimes during that, people aren't sleeping, and so we're all kind of screwed up. All we can do, if you hear anything, all we can do is what we're willing, capable, and able to try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's all we can do, whether you're driving, whether you're laying down with your kid. And sometimes with your kiddos, they'll mimic what you're doing. So if you try to, lengthen your breath, right? They'll try to, when you're in a massage, this sounds really like, maybe, weird if, but in a massage, you'll hear somebody, your masseuse, like lengthen their breath, and then you do.
Yeah. It's so
Right.
true. And they do that, I think,
So
on purpose because they want you to follow their breath.
100%. Right.
Hmm. Wow.
So get activate, the parasympathetic, and just maybe asking yourself or being aware of yourself of like, what does help me calm?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, maybe it's please your nutrition, right? And we're on Seasons podcast, like please your nutrition, and maybe it's mindfulness, maybe like I said, a meditation, also things like tapping, humming, gargling. What's your self-talk, like all those things, right? So that can help just come back to a more calm state.
And I love that what you shared though, of all the things, because I know everybody says things like mindfulness and practice self-care, and in a season of grief, you're like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, I don't know where to start.
No.
But the fact that you can go from sympathetic, which is the stressed, bear is chasing me, but it's not, but that's how my body's responding, to the parasympathetic, which is the relaxed, by simply taking deep breaths and letting your exhale be longer than your inhale. That's powerful.
It's very powerful. And for those out there that when I say it's easy, it's just, I say it's simple because we can say it and it's free and accessible, right? Now in the moment, of course, it might feel so hard. Like I can't take a deep breath, Courtney. I get this a lot, right? I can't, and that's okay. We just keep trying.
Yeah.
Right. It's just this, we keep trying, because all of a sudden one day you're going to be like, oh, and you're going to feel a sigh and you're going to go, that's a calm that I haven't felt like for a bit. So it's just like an honoring where you're at, and we just keep trying.
Yeah.
Because I remember, screw the breath, screw self-care, screw like all the things. I get it. My heart would hurt. I couldn't, we just keep coming back to it. We keep coming back to it. And all of a sudden you're going to go, oh,
yeah,
maybe it works for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. This is so good. I love that you have taken your tragic situation and chosen to step into serving others through it. And even in the midst of grief, you're still grieving. You've been grieving, and you really started serving other people, coaching other people, right? Kind of in the beginning of this, like you knew, like, okay, I'm taking this pain and I'm turning it into something to serve other people. And So you're helping with life coaching
Yep.
specifically. And
Yep.
can we link, we'll link actually in the show notes how people can find you.
Yep.
I want you to talk before we go a little bit about this really special project that you put together with your heart of helping others show up and serve others in grief. And it's 27 Robins. So will you just briefly tell us what that is? And of course, I'll link to it in the show notes, because I just think, especially, you know, with cancer and the world that we navigate, like when you told me about this, I'm like, this is amazing. This is what we need. I love this idea that you created.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. And it's just this little baby of mine right now. And I'm going to put it in context of what we've talked about. So maybe everybody will get a little bit of a giggle, but so people going through grief, right, we get all these gifts. And so I know exactly who gave me the basket kit, and I love them, and I could joke about it, right, with them. But in all honesty, as time went on, I was like, I just kept thinking of like this really nurturing grief box that's like people from, whether they're down the road and busy and don't, or to maybe it's uncomfortable, right, to come and give a gift or whatever, or it's the people that are far and wide that we want to do stuff. We want to show we care. And we can't send a lasagna from, 4 states away or whatever it is. And so I created this box that just felt really nurturing to me. It started with 27 Robins, to back up, is a luxury gift box online store. And I know nothing about any of that. Okay. So
But she does know about basket weaving. So
yeah. So like I'm like a coach. Okay. I know nothing about this business, but it just really lit up for me. Because I'm a nurturer. And so it started with this, the signature box of the grief box. And it's got, a soft handkerchief. It's got tea, a tea strainer. It's got essential oil blend to relieve anxious feelings. And it's got like lip balm. So hydration is a theme throughout, right? A silk pillowcase for when we can finally sleep and things like this. And then it kind of grew, and I have a few different self-care boxes. And the reason self-care is, like you've mentioned, it's kind of this, like, some people kind of cringe, when they hear it, because they think they have to maybe go to a massage, like I mentioned earlier. Well, here's what I invite. It's like, it looks different for everybody. So and I even have another box coming out that looks different than the other 3 boxes, because one is more like, oh, well, if you've listened to, Season It All, it's like, one has, a dry brush. So it's a little bit more like on the detox self-care. One is more about like, no, let's lay around in my, towel after my bath, or let's lay under my blanket, so they're all a little different. And so knowing how either yourself can get connection to yourself and recharge, or if it's a gift, right, for somebody else, knowing how they recharge. So, and then we're growing, we've got new mamas, and in each box, there's, it's just really sweet, luxurious items that are meaningful, and I feel like are really potent and powerful to the event or their processes that they're going through. So it's really fun. And I don't know anything that I'm doing. So people can always call me and give me some tips.
But
I'm an open book.
It's so curated to soul. It's just so like soul care. And like you said, whether it's grieving or a new mom, or what I thought, and I think I told you this when you first shared the idea with me, caregivers. Like, what a gift for caregivers. I mean, that is when you talk about detox, or you talk about the laying around, like that is something not talked about, is you are a caregiver, even though you're walking through your own grief. And so I think what you're doing is so needed. And again, for the people who don't know what to say, or they don't know how to act, a simple gift sent in the mail that is not a basket weaving kit, but is a curated luxury,
Send you one.
beautiful, like gift box.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
awesome. So we're going to link that below, so that you
Great.
guys can get access to 27 Robins. And I'm excited. I'm excited to order one and ship it out to somebody and to just show, like you
Yeah.
said, to show people you're thinking of them, but in a really
That's
special, intentional way.
Yep. Yep. And what you just said that, to finish up, it's the support does need support. And it's really, really important to whatever somebody's going through, and if you're supporting somebody going through something pretty hefty, it's giving out a lot, and we need to put that oxygen mask on that person, right? So it's like the support needs support. So I say that not just in 27 Robins context, but in the context of everybody listening for you, they're supporting somebody going through something.
Yeah.
So just to remember, like, to know how you connect with yourself and recharge.
Absolutely.
Really important. Mm-hmm.
Courtney, you're a gift. I love you. I just adore you. And
I
I'm so
love you.
grateful.
This is amazing. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. Well, before we go, I have a question I'd like to ask everybody. What
Okay.
is currently inspiring you the most? It could be a TV show, a podcast, music, a book, a person,
Great.
a basket of sorts.
Great. Great question. I should probably say something like my new DIY channel that I'm watching, but
We
it's
know
not.
you're lying. So
Yeah, no. Okay, so currently, I'm going to be real transparent. Okay, so currently podcasting, it's Huberman Lab. Here's why. I can take his like 4-hour podcast and really whittle them down. And they're practical tools that I use with my clients every day, right? Because it's skills, tools, practices, strategies, whatever that are, most of them are pretty easily accessible. And I can, that's very practical for my clients and myself. So that's a great podcast. A book I'm reading is, am I going to get it right? The Power of One More.
oh yeah,
Ed
by Ed
Milet.
Milet. Yes.
Yes. And one reason I like that, because I like his little hashtag of max out. I think it's cute. And it's easy for me because of this whole 27 Robins thing. I had to get out of my comfort zone. So it's like every day, one more thing that I'm going to do? What's one more thing that's real uncomfortable? So that one's been relatable to me. And then, another book, that I'm reading. I bet you have a lot of empaths in your listeners, whatever we say in all your listeners. I'm reading 365 days of practices for empaths. And so each day it's kind of a recognition of maybe what we as highly sensitive people go through, and then a practice to kind of, whether it's, maintain your boundaries, recharge, so that was just kind of cute because it's a nice way for me to start my morning. Because it's just kind of a little page with like some recognition, like, and then a little practical tool.
Ooh, I like that. Ooh, those are good. I
So
do love Huberman. I need to read that book. It's been on my list, the Ed Milet one.
Yes.
And then that's
yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think that's, I'm not, those are, I would say right now. Mm-hmm.
Those are good. That's a lot. I feel like you just,
I should probably read like how to run an online retail business.
Luxury retail box business. Listen, that's where the most magical things come from, is when you step into something you feel passionate about, but yet you feel so uncomfortable and unfamiliar with. Like that's where the best is born, I think.
Exactly. It's like I said, it's kind of like having a baby. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I love this, and I'm going to do it anyway. So exactly.
I love it.
So
well,
sweet.
Courtney, thank you so much for being on. Thanks for sharing with my audience. And I'm sure we'll have you on again soon. I feel like there's so many more angles we could go. But if you're looking at getting a hold of Courtney, we're going to link all the information to find her, to find 27 Robins below in the show notes. And you can reach out to her, follow her on social media, and contact her as well. So Courtney, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.